The harsh reality and the hidden secret. Most Americans don't have a money problem, they have a philosophy problem. That's the truth that Jim Rohn would deliver straight to the heart. Think about it. Surveys reveal that the majority of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, regardless of whether they earn $40,000 a year or $400,000 a year. Credit card debt is at record highs, savings are at record lows, and financial stress is one of the leading causes of broken families, sleepless nights, and restless hearts. People work harder, put in longer hours, hustle every day, yet somehow they are still broke. And here's the paradox. It's not because they don't make enough money. It's because they don't have the right philosophy about money. Jim used to remind us, if you don't change your philosophy, you can give a man a fortune and he will lose it. But if you give him the right philosophy, he can build a fortune from nothing. That is the difference between chasing money and attracting it. Most people are running so fast after money that they never stop to realize money runs faster. The harder they chase, the more it escapes them, because desperation repels wealth. But here's the breakthrough idea. Money is not something to be hunted down, it is energy. And like all energy, it flows. It flows to discipline. It flows to vision. It flows to value. It flows to gratitude. Money does not flow to chaos, desperation, or irresponsibility. That's why the poor stay poor, not because they are incapable, but because their philosophy leaks energy instead of attracting it. Jim would often say, success is not something you pursue. Success is something you attract by the person you become. Apply that to money, and the message is clear. Stop chasing money, start becoming attractive to money. Money is energy, and energy responds to who you are. Imagine this for a moment. Two people earn the same paycheck. One lives on more than he earns, racks up debt, and wonders why he never gets ahead. The other lives on less, saves, invests, and gives. Over time, one is weighed down by financial chains, while the other is lifted by financial freedom. The paycheck is the same, the philosophy is different. That difference is everything. And this is why we must begin here, with the harsh truth. Because until you shift your philosophy, no amount of new income, new side hustles, or new opportunities will change your life. The energy of money will keep slipping away because you are not aligned with it. Money, like energy, seeks order. It seeks flow. It seeks a steward who respects it, not someone who abuses it. And that steward must begin with you. Now, here is the good news. If money is energy, then wealth is not reserved for the lucky few. It is available to anyone willing to learn the laws of energy. Just as electricity flows through a wire that is properly designed, money flows into a life properly aligned. If you change your philosophy, you change your results. If you learn to respect the energy of money, you invite it to stay. If you grow your capacity, you expand your ability to attract. The mistake most people make is thinking that wealth comes from chasing the next big break, the next raise, the next windfall. But history is full of lottery winners who lost it all, athletes who went bankrupt, and high earners who ended up broke. Why? Because they had money without philosophy. And without philosophy, energy leaks. On the other hand, there are countless stories of ordinary people, starting with little, who built fortunes by applying discipline, vision, and generosity. They understood that money is energy, and they learned how to direct that flow. So let me give it to you as straight as Jim Rohn would. Stop running after dollars. Start running after disciplines. Stop complaining about not having enough. Start asking, what kind of person do I need to become so that wealth is attracted to me? That's the real question, and that's the shift that changes everything. Money doesn't change your life, philosophy does. Once your philosophy changes, your habits change. Once your habits change, your results change. And once your results change, your life changes. That is the chain reaction, and it always begins with you. In America today, the problem is not income, it is mindset. And the solution is not chasing harder, it is becoming better. Remember, money is energy, and energy flows to order, discipline, vision, and gratitude. If you want more of it, don't chase it. Align yourself with it. Become attractive to it. That is the foundation, the beginning of a new financial story, and the first step toward turning money from your master into your servant. Jim Rohn's story and the lesson that money is energy. Jim Rohn's story is not one of instant success, but of a gradual awakening to the truth that money is energy and that wealth is attracted, not chased. In his early years, Jim was the classic example of the hardworking American who seemed to do everything right yet could not escape financial struggle. He worked long hours on a farm, he took jobs that paid the bills, but at the end of every month, the math never worked. He was broke, behind on obligations, and living in quiet desperation. He used to joke that when the doorbell rang, he hoped it was not a bill collector because he didn't have an answer. He was like millions of people today working hard but getting nowhere. And here's what he realized: hard work alone is not the answer. You can dig ditches 10 hours a day, sweat from dawn until dusk, and still remain broke. The missing piece was philosophy. It wasn't until he encountered a mentor named Earl Schoaf that his perspective shifted. Schoaf asked him a piercing question: how much money have you saved over the last 6 years? Jim had no answer. He had earned, but he had nothing to show. Schoaf then said words that would change his life. It's not how much you earn, Jim. It's what you become. Wealth is not something you pursue. Wealth is something you attract by the person you become. That idea hit Jim like a thunderbolt. He saw clearly that money wasn't a chase. It was a reflection. It reflected discipline, vision, value, and generosity. If he wanted to change his results, he had to change himself. That was the birth of his philosophy. Money is energy, and energy flows to those who know how to manage it. From that day, Jim became a student. He read books, not just to pass time, but to reshape his mind. He studied business, philosophy, and human behavior. He attended seminars, listened to recordings, and filled notebooks with ideas. He began to practice small disciplines, like setting aside part of his income, investing in his personal growth, and giving a portion away to causes that mattered. Slowly but surely, the energy of money began to flow toward him. He went from broke farm boy to successful entrepreneur, from a man who feared the doorbell to a man who welcomed opportunity. But here's the deeper lesson. His income didn't rise until he rose. His fortune didn't grow until his philosophy grew. The world didn't change until he changed. Jim would often tell his audiences, for things to change, you have to change. For things to get better, you have to get better. He embodied that truth, and his life became the proof. Money was no longer something he chased, it was something that gravitated toward him because he had become the kind of person who could handle it. He liked to remind people that money is like a shy guest. If you chase it too desperately, it runs away. But if you create a welcoming environment, it comes and stays. And what creates that environment? Discipline, value, vision, and gratitude. Jim learned that when he respected money, it respected him. When he gave, money multiplied. When he managed it well, money flowed. And when he invested in himself, opportunities appeared. These were not accidents. They were the natural flow of energy responding to alignment. His story also taught him humility. He knew what it was like to be broke, and he knew what it was like to prosper. That contrast gave him the conviction to teach others. He could stand on a stage and say with authority, I know what it's like to have nothing, and I know what it's like to build something. And I can tell you, the difference is not luck. It's not chance, it's philosophy. People listened because they saw themselves in his journey. They saw the struggling young man who decided to change, and they realized they could change too. That was Jim's gift, to take a universal truth and wrap it in a personal story so that anyone, anywhere, could see possibility. The lesson he carried forward was clear. If money is energy, then wealth is a matter of alignment. Align yourself with the disciplines that govern money, and it will flow toward you. Ignore those disciplines, and it will slip away no matter how much you earn. He had lived both sides of that reality, and he chose to never go back. So the story of Jim Rohn is not just about making millions. It is about awakening to a philosophy that says you don't need to chase money, you need to attract it. And you attract it by becoming a person of value, by developing the discipline to manage it, by building the vision to direct it, and by practicing the generosity to keep it flowing. Money is energy, and energy flows toward order, responsibility, and growth. Jim Rohn's life became a living testament to that principle, and his invitation to all of us is simple. If you want to change your financial life, don't just run harder after money. Change your philosophy, change yourself, and let the energy of wealth be drawn to you. You attract what you become. Jim Rohn would often remind us with a simple truth. Your income seldom exceeds your level of personal development. That statement may sting, but it is the doorway to freedom. Think about it. If you are the same person year after year, same skills, same mindset, same habits, why would your income rise? Why would opportunities flow to you? Money is energy, and energy responds to growth. If you do not grow, you cannot expect money to grow in your life. People spend years chasing higher pay, better jobs, or quick opportunities, yet they neglect the single most important investment, becoming a better version of themselves. Jim's philosophy was that wealth is not something you pursue, it is something you attract by the person you become. Imagine a magnet. A small magnet can only attract small bits of metal. A stronger magnet, developed and refined, can attract more. You are the magnet, and money is the metal. If you want to attract more, you must increase your strength, your pull, your value. That is why Jim became a lifelong learner. He read books, studied ideas, practiced disciplines, and invested in growth, because he knew that the better he became, the more wealth would be drawn to him. And it worked. From broke farm boy to millionaire mentor, his life testified to the power of becoming. Now, let's apply this. If you want to double your income, don't just beg for a raise, double your value. If you want better clients, become a better leader. If you want greater opportunities, expand your vision. Money flows to those who can handle it, those who have built the character, the wisdom, and the discipline to manage it. If you do not build yourself, even if wealth comes, it will slip away. That's why lottery winners so often lose everything. They got the money, but they never became the kind of person who could hold it. On the other hand, people who start small and keep growing often build fortunes that last, because their personal development prepared them for it. Jim used to say, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Why? Because your job may make you a living, but your personal growth makes you a fortune. Skills can be learned, character can be strengthened, vision can be expanded, but only if you choose to become more. Every book you read, every skill you master, every habit you discipline adds to your capacity to attract. You become bigger on the inside, and money, being energy, responds to that expansion. If you stay small, opportunities will pass you by. But if you grow, you cannot help but attract more. So ask yourself, who are you becoming? Are you someone money can trust? Are you someone opportunities want to follow? If not, it's time to change. It's time to shift your focus from chasing dollars to building yourself. Because when you build yourself, the dollars come anyway. Jim Rohn's philosophy here is liberating because it puts the power back in your hands. You don't have to wait for the economy to improve, for the boss to notice, for the government to help. You only have to grow yourself. That is the starting point, and that is the secret. Money doesn't change until you do. Wealth doesn't increase until you do. You attract what you become. So become more disciplined, become more valuable, become more grateful, become more visionary. And as you do, watch how the energy of money begins to flow toward you, not by accident, not by luck, but by the natural law that says wealth is drawn to growth. Discipline creates magnetic energy. Jim Rohn often said, we must all suffer one of two pains, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. And when it comes to money, nothing is truer. Discipline is the magnetic energy that draws wealth toward you. Without discipline, money slips through your fingers like water. With discipline, money respects you, stays with you, and multiplies. Think about the average American. They earn a paycheck, and before the week is over, it's gone spent on impulse buys, entertainment, or things they don't truly need. Then they wonder why money doesn't stay. The answer is simple. Money does not flow to chaos. Money flows to discipline. Discipline is setting aside savings before you spend. Discipline is investing consistently even when you'd rather use the money for something else. Discipline is resisting the temptation of short-term pleasure for the promise of long-term gain. And here's the secret. Every act of discipline creates energy, and that energy pulls wealth closer. Jim would often compare discipline to planting seeds. You don't eat all the seed. You save some for planting. If you eat it all, you may enjoy a full belly today, but you will starve tomorrow. If you save and plant, you enjoy harvest after harvest. That's how discipline works with money. The undisciplined spend everything today and are broke tomorrow. The disciplined set aside, invest, and give, and they enjoy a continuous harvest. This is why Jim would challenge his audiences. Don't wish for less problems. Wish for more discipline. Don't wish for more money. Wish for more wisdom and discipline in handling it. Because money without discipline is dangerous. It can make you reckless, proud, and careless. But money with discipline becomes a tool, a servant, a friend. Look at the stories of those who earned fortunes but lost them all. Athletes, celebrities, lottery winners. What was missing? Discipline. And look at the stories of ordinary men and women who built wealth steadily over time. What did they have? Discipline. They didn't wait for the perfect moment or the perfect income. They practiced the small disciplines daily, and those disciplines created momentum, and momentum created wealth. Jim's philosophy was clear. Wealth is attracted to order, and order is the product of discipline. The disciplined person attracts trust. Employers trust them with responsibility. Investors trust them with capital. Clients trust them with business. And that trust translates into opportunities, income, and growth. That is the magnetic pull of discipline. So what does this look like in practice? It looks like living on 70% of your income and resisting the urge to inflate your lifestyle with every raise. It looks like saving 10% no matter how small the paycheck, proving that you can be trusted with more. It looks like investing 10% steadily, knowing that wealth grows slowly but surely. It looks like giving 10%, creating generosity as part of your identity. Each of these actions requires discipline, and each one generates energy. And that energy, invisible but powerful, draws more wealth into your life. Discipline is not glamorous. It doesn't get applause. No one cheers when you pack a lunch instead of eating out, or when you set money aside instead of spending it. But over time, those quiet choices build loud results. Discipline compounds, just like money compounds. The disciplined person doesn't have to chase wealth. Wealth finds its way to them. That is the magnetic energy Jim was talking about. So ask yourself, what disciplines are you practicing with money today? Are you sowing seeds for tomorrow's harvest, or are you eating it all today? Remember, regret is heavier than discipline. The pain of discipline weighs ounces. The pain of regret weighs tons. Choose discipline. Choose the small acts repeated daily. Because with discipline, you don't just manage money, you attract it. And when you attract it, you create freedom, stability, and the power to design the life you want. That is the true reward of discipline. And that is why discipline is the magnetic energy that separates the broke from the wealthy. Value flows. Where value grows. Jim Rohn often reminded us that money is nothing more than a reward for the service you render, the value you bring, the problems you solve. That is why money is energy, it flows to value. If you want more money, don't just demand it, create more value. Don't wish the economy were better, become better. Don't hope the company pays you more. Become so valuable they cannot ignore you. Money is not attracted to wishes or complaints. It is attracted to value. And here is the principle. Value flows where value grows. If you grow your skills, your mindset, your capacity to serve, money will naturally find its way to you. Jim used to say, you don't get paid by the hour. You get paid for the value you bring to that hour. Two people may both work 60 minutes, but one earns more because the value delivered in that 60 minutes is greater. The lesson is simple. Stop focusing on time and start focusing on value. Imagine two employees. One comes in, does the bare minimum, and leaves. The other brings creativity, solves problems, and goes the extra mile. Who attracts promotions, raises, and opportunities? The one who grows in value. Money flows toward them because they have become more useful, more capable, more indispensable. That is the law, and it works everywhere. Look at the marketplace. Why do some companies earn billions while others collapse? Because they deliver value people want, value people need, and value people trust. Money flows where value grows. It is not luck. It is not chance. It is value. Jim learned this truth when he stopped blaming circumstances and started asking himself, how can I increase my value in the marketplace? That question changed everything. He began reading, learning, observing, practicing, and as he grew in value, his income reflected that growth. He realized that wealth is a mirror, and the reflection is value. The more you offer, the more you attract. And here's the beauty. Anyone can grow in value. You don't need permission, you don't need a miracle, you don't need a special background, you need only to decide to grow. Take courses, read books, practice your craft, learn from mentors, and every step increases your capacity. And with every increase in capacity comes an increase in opportunity. People pay for solutions, not for time. People pay for creativity, not for excuses. People pay for results, not for effort. If you can deliver results, you will never lack money, because money is energy that flows to value. Jim would warn, however, that value is not just technical skill. Value also comes from character, attitude, and reliability. You can be the smartest person in the room, but if you are undisciplined, untrustworthy, or negative, value leaks away. True value is a combination of skill and character, of competence and integrity. That is what creates trust, and trust multiplies value. So the challenge is clear. If you want to attract more wealth, stop chasing dollars and start chasing growth. Become a student again, learn new skills, improve your craft, sharpen your mind. Look for ways to serve more people, solve bigger problems, and create deeper impact. Because the marketplace pays for value, not effort. The question is not how much time you put in, but how much value you put out. Jim's philosophy is liberating because it shifts the focus from things you cannot control to the one thing you can control: yourself. You cannot control the economy, but you can control your value. You cannot control inflation, but you can control your skills. You cannot control circumstances, but you can control your growth. And as you grow, money will flow, because value flows where value grows. That is the timeless principle, and it is as true today as it was when Jim first discovered it. Gratitude and generosity multiply wealth. Jim Rohn often reminded us that money is energy, and like all energy, it flows. If you try to hoard it, clutch it, and guard it selfishly, you cut off the very flow that could bring more. But when you practice gratitude and generosity, you open channels, you create circulation, and that circulation multiplies wealth. Jim would say, giving is better than receiving because giving starts the receiving process. At first glance, that sounds paradoxical. How can you have more by giving some away? Yet it is one of life's great laws. The soil produces when the farmer gives seed. The marketplace rewards when the entrepreneur gives value. Life itself expands when we give thanks for what we already have. Gratitude is the beginning of prosperity because it shifts your focus from what you lack to what you possess, and what you focus on expands. If you live always in scarcity, complaining about what you don't have, you repel the energy of money. But if you live in gratitude, celebrating what you do have, you create a magnet that attracts more. Jim practiced this daily. He taught his audiences to keep a gratitude journal, to pause and say thank you, to recognize blessings large and small. Gratitude creates joy, and joy is attractive energy. Wealth flows to those who already feel wealthy, not to those who constantly feel empty. But gratitude alone is not enough, you must also practice generosity. Jim built it into his famous formula, 10% for giving. Why? Because generosity is proof that money does not control you, you control it. When you can part with a portion of your income, you demonstrate mastery. And mastery creates confidence, and confidence attracts. Generosity also builds trust. People remember those who give. Opportunities flow toward those who contribute. When you give to your community, to causes you believe in, to people in need, you expand your circle of influence. That influence often returns as goodwill, referrals, partnerships, and doors you could never have opened by chasing. Jim often pointed out that the wealthiest people are usually the most generous. It's not because they can afford to give. It's because generosity helped them become wealthy. The act of giving kept the flow of energy open. The act of giving expanded their vision beyond themselves. The act of giving attracted relationships and opportunities that multiplied their wealth. Generosity doesn't impoverish, it enriches. And the beauty is, you don't have to wait until you're rich to begin. Start now. Give $1 from 10. Give 10 from 100. The amount is less important than the discipline. By practicing generosity when your means are small, you prepare yourself to handle more when your means are great. Jim loved to say, if you won't give a dime out of $1, you won't give 100,000 out of 1,000,000. Generosity is a habit, not a one-time act. Combine that with gratitude, and you have a powerful formula. Gratitude fills you with a sense of abundance. Generosity proves that abundance by sharing it, and together they multiply wealth. They keep the energy of money flowing toward you, not away from you. So if you want to attract wealth instead of chasing it, begin with these two practices. Every morning, list 3 things you are grateful for. Every paycheck, set aside a portion to give. Watch how your mindset shifts, how your energy changes, and how money begins to flow differently. Because money, being energy, seeks channels of openness, joy, and contribution. And when you live in gratitude and generosity, you become such a channel. Wealth is not just what you hold, it is what flows through you, and the more you let it flow, the more it multiplies. Vision directs the flow of money. Jim Rohn used to say, without a vision, even the richest man will squander his fortune, but with a vision, even the poorest man can build one. Money is energy, and like all energy, it needs direction. Without direction, it scatters. Without purpose, it leaks. Without vision, it is wasted. This is why so many people, even with high incomes, remain broke. They have no vision for their money, no plan for their future, no clarity about what they are building. They live only for today, and as a result, tomorrow is always uncertain. Vision is the discipline of deciding in advance where your energy will flow. If you know where you are going, you can direct money to support that journey. If you don't, money drifts away on impulse purchases, emotional spending, and short-term distractions. Jim would remind us that wealth is not just about accumulation, it is about design. You must design your life the way an architect designs a building, with intention, with detail, with a clear end result in mind. Then, every dollar becomes a tool, every investment becomes a brick, every act of discipline becomes part of the structure. Vision gives money purpose, and purpose gives money power. Consider the difference between two people with the same income. One has no vision. He spends on whatever catches his eye, he buys to impress, he invests randomly, he drifts. The other has a clear goal, perhaps to build a business, buy a home, fund his children's education, or retire with freedom. Every financial decision he makes is measured against that vision. Guess who will attract more wealth over time? The one with vision, because money respects purpose. Energy flows where direction exists. Jim learned this truth firsthand. In his early days, he had no vision, and his money vanished. Once he discovered the power of setting goals, writing plans, and creating a clear picture of the future, money began to align with him. Opportunities came because he knew what to do with them. Capital came because people trusted his clarity. Money itself seemed drawn to him because he had somewhere to send it. Vision, he taught, is magnetic. It not only directs your own resources, it attracts the resources of others. Investors, partners, mentors, and clients all gravitate toward people with vision. Nobody wants to back someone who is lost, but everyone wants to support someone who knows where they are going. That's why vision is not optional, it is essential. So how do you create a vision that attracts wealth? Start by asking powerful questions. What kind of life do I want to design? What legacy do I want to leave? What impact do I want my money to create? Write it down. Make it vivid. Then align your financial habits with that picture. Save and invest in ways that support the vision. Cut out expenses that distract from it. Be willing to sacrifice today's impulse for tomorrow's dream. The clearer the vision, the stronger the magnet. Jim would say, the future must be captured in your imagination before it can be captured in your bank account. Vision is imagination disciplined into a plan. And once you have that, money stops being random and starts being intentional. It stops being something you chase and starts being something that supports your journey. That is the law. Vision directs the flow of money. Without vision, money wanders. With vision, money marches. And when money marches, wealth is built, freedom is secured, and impact is multiplied. If you want to attract wealth, don't just work harder, see clearer. Write the vision, live by it, and let money's energy flow exactly where you have prepared the channel. Practical applications for today's life. The real test of philosophy is not how inspiring it sounds on stage, but how practical it becomes in your daily life, and Jim Rohn's teaching that money is energy is no exception. To live it, you must translate the principle into actions that shape your financial habits, your mindset, and your future. Because no matter how many times you nod in agreement, nothing changes until you apply. And the good news is that the application of this philosophy does not require extraordinary talent, massive income, or rare opportunity. It requires only commitment, discipline, and consistency. Let's start with the first practice. Personal growth is the foundation of wealth. Jim taught that your income seldom exceeds your level of personal development. That means every book you read, every course you take, every seminar you attend is not just education, it is a magnet that attracts wealth. If you want to earn more, learn more. If you want to increase your income, increase your value. In practical terms, this means carving out time each day to grow. Instead of mindlessly scrolling social media, spend 30 minutes reading. Instead of binge-watching shows, listen to a podcast that sharpens your skills. Growth compounds, and as you become more, you attract more. The second practice is discipline with money. Money is energy, and energy requires order. If your finances are chaotic, money will not stay. Jim's 70 divided by 10 divided by 10 divided by 10 formula is a perfect starting point for discipline. Live on 70%, save 10%, invest 10%, and give 10%. The simplicity is its genius. You don't need a complicated spreadsheet or advanced financial software to get started. You need envelopes, accounts, or simple transfers that allocate money the moment it comes in. The habit of dividing money before spending it creates order, and order creates flow. Over time, that flow grows into abundance. The third practice is intentional value creation. Remember, money flows where value grows. This means focusing your daily work not on clocking hours but on producing results. Ask yourself, how can I solve bigger problems? How can I serve more people? How can I improve my skills to make my work indispensable? If you are an employee, look for ways to add value beyond your job description. If you are a business owner, focus on creating products or services that genuinely improve people's lives. If you are a student, invest in learning skills that the marketplace rewards. Every increase in value is like turning up the dial on your magnet for money. The fourth practice is cultivating gratitude and generosity. This may seem soft, but it is one of the most powerful ways to keep money flowing. Begin each day by writing down 3 things you are grateful for. Gratitude shifts your energy from scarcity to abundance, and abundance attracts. Then, make generosity non-negotiable. Every time you receive income, set aside a portion to give. It could be to your church, a charity, a friend in need, or even a stranger. The amount matters less than the act. By giving, you prove to yourself that money doesn't control you, and that act opens the door for more to flow in. Generosity is not subtraction, it is multiplication. The fifth practice is vision. Without a vision, money scatters. With a vision, money aligns. Jim urged people to set clear, written goals for their life and finances. What do you want in 5 years? 10 years? What kind of home, business, lifestyle, and legacy do you want to build? Write it down. See it vividly. Then align your spending, saving, investing, and giving with that vision. Every dollar should serve a purpose, not just pass through your hands. For example, if your vision is financial independence, then set a clear number for what independence means. Calculate how much you must invest monthly, and let that vision guide your choices. Vision gives money direction, and direction creates attraction. Now, let's apply this to everyday scenarios. Imagine a student earning only a part-time wage. They may think, I don't earn enough to practice these principles. But Jim would say, if you can't handle a little, you won't handle a lot. That student can still live on less than they earn, still save a few dollars, still invest in a small way, still give a portion. The amounts are small, but the disciplines are priceless. Over time, as income grows, the habits are already in place. Or consider a middle-class worker living paycheck to paycheck. The temptation is to say, I'll start when I earn more. But that day never comes unless you begin now. By implementing even a small version of the formula, by cutting expenses, by practicing gratitude, by increasing value at work, the energy begins to shift. Opportunities start appearing, raises are earned, side businesses emerge. Because money flows to order, to growth, to vision, even entrepreneurs can apply this philosophy. Too often, business owners chase revenue but never master money. They spend recklessly, reinvest without strategy, or neglect giving. By applying the principle that money is energy, they create financial systems in their business, they invest in growth, they give generously, and they design their company with vision. The result is not just profit but sustainability, not just income but impact. And here is the deeper truth Jim Rohn emphasized. Application is about consistency, not perfection. You will make mistakes. You may fall off track. But discipline is about returning to the practice, again and again, until it becomes second nature. Just as exercise builds muscles through repeated effort, financial discipline builds wealth through repeated actions. Every saved dollar, every wise investment, every act of giving, every expression of gratitude adds energy to your financial magnet. And over time, the results are undeniable. In today's world of instant gratification, quick fixes, and financial shortcuts, this philosophy is more needed than ever. People want wealth without discipline, success without growth, freedom without sacrifice. But that is not how energy works. Energy responds to order, to patience, to consistency. Money is energy, and it flows to those who live by principles, not to those who chase shortcuts. Jim's practical applications are timeless. Grow yourself daily, practice discipline with every paycheck, focus on value creation, cultivate gratitude and generosity, and live with vision. Apply these, and you will no longer feel like you are chasing money. Instead, money will begin to chase you, drawn by the person you are becoming and the order you have created. That is the ultimate promise of this philosophy, and that is the invitation for you to begin today. A closing message of inspiration: Jim Rohn's philosophy that money is energy, that wealth is not something to chase but something to attract, is more than financial advice. It is a way of living. And as we come to the end of this journey, let us bring the pieces together in one final message of inspiration. Look at your life today. Maybe you are working hard. Maybe you are tired. Maybe you are wondering why all your effort still leaves you broke or stressed. You are not alone. Millions of Americans know the weight of debt, the grind of paycheck to paycheck living, the fear of not having enough. But here's the good news. You don't have to stay there. The transformation begins not with winning the lottery, not with a sudden raise, not with luck, but with philosophy. Philosophy is the foundation, and when you change your philosophy, everything else begins to shift. Jim would remind us, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. Don't wish for less problems, wish for more skills. That is the essence of attraction. Wealth doesn't come to the person who chases, it comes to the person who becomes. So, the real question is not, how can I get more money? But, how can I become more valuable, more disciplined, more grateful, more visionary? Because as you become more, you attract more. That is the law, as certain as gravity, and it works whether you acknowledge it or not. Think of money as a guest. It doesn't stay where it isn't respected. It doesn't remain where it is wasted. But when it finds a home of order, vision, discipline, and generosity, it settles in and multiplies. The energy of money gravitates toward responsibility. It gravitates toward growth. It gravitates toward service. And that is why Jim's story is so powerful. He started broke, ordinary, without privilege. Yet by changing his philosophy, by working harder on himself than on his job, by practicing disciplines like saving, investing, giving, and growing, he attracted wealth. And more importantly, he attracted freedom, purpose, and impact. If Jim could do it, so can you. The key is to stop waiting. Stop waiting for the raise, the promotion, the economy, the miracle. Stop waiting for someone else to rescue you. Begin now with what you have, where you are. Take the next paycheck and divide it with discipline. Take the next hour and spend it on learning. Take the next opportunity and give generously, even if it's small. Each step is proof that you are aligning with the energy of money, that you are building the kind of person wealth wants to be around, and as those steps compound, your life will change. Jim often compared success to farming. You cannot sow today and reap tomorrow. You must plant, you must water, you must wait, and in due time the harvest comes. Wealth works the same way. It doesn't come to those who demand it instantly, it comes to those who prepare for it patiently. If you embrace this philosophy, you will find peace in the process, because you will no longer be frantic, chasing every dollar. Instead, you will stand firm, attracting what you deserve by who you are becoming. And here is the deeper truth. Money is not the ultimate goal. Money is a tool. It gives you freedom. It gives you options. It gives you the ability to live with dignity and to bless others. But the real wealth is who you become. The real treasure is character, wisdom, gratitude, and generosity. Because at the end of the day, money comes and goes, but the person you have built remains. And that person can always build again, attract again, create again. Jim left us with words that echo through generations. Success is not something you pursue. Success is something you attract by the person you become. If you remember nothing else, remember that. Don't chase, attract. Don't complain, grow. Don't hoard, give. Don't drift, create a vision. Live these principles, and you will find that money, like energy, begins to flow toward you. So as we close, here is the invitation. Begin today. Begin small if you must, but begin. Read a page, save a dollar, invest a coin, give a portion, write a vision. Do it today, and then again tomorrow, and again the next day. Each act is a signal to the universe, to the marketplace, to yourself, that you are ready to attract wealth. And as you do, life will open. Opportunities will come. Doors will unlock, and one day you will look back and realize that the person who once chased money has become the person money now chases. That is the power of philosophy. That is the legacy of Jim Rohn, and that can be the story of your life if you choose it.